So Venus and Jupiter will both see time in Taurus this year. Venus very soon, Jupiter later in the year. And the North Node is there. They will both conjoin the North Node in Taurus. And so I want to talk about it. What is Taurus? What is the North Node? What can this mean in terms of our appetites for love and creativity here in 2023? Stay tuned. And so here we go. My name is S.J. Anderson. Thanks for being here, astrologer. On this channel, I break down astrology. I talk about the transits as they unfold. And this is one of the more interesting transits I'm excited to get into because the zodiac sign of Taurus is a major player still. It was in 2022 as eclipses came to Taurus. The first eclipse in November 2021. The final eclipse in Taurus will be in October 2023. But what happens this year is that we have Jupiter entering Taurus while the North Node is still there. And Jupiter stays there until May 2024. And so there's a lot of activation in our Taurus sector still here in this ongoing way. And I wanted just to focus here on the notion of tenderness as a primary theme for Taurus, a primary keyword, coming through Venus's rulership as the domicile lord, and then the moon's rulership vis-a-vis exaltation. Those are the only two rulers, Venus and the moon. If you use something called whole sign rulership, which is a concept I've developed, I love that phrase. I love applying it to figuring out the significations of the signs based on the rulers that rule every degree in that sign. And so we would use domicile, exaltation, and triplicity lords. Of triplicity lords, I like to discount the third supporting lord because it never takes on that primary rulership. It's only the day ruler and the night ruler. And when you look at Taurus through that lens, it is only the moon and Venus, the only two planets that can rule, either by exaltation, domicile, or triplicity. And the moon is our physical body. Venus is tenderness and beauty and pleasure. The moon is the body. And so tender for me is the perfect adjective and the perfect noun, tenderness, to describe Taurus. We can be sensitive to our body, the needs of our bodies, the pleasures, all of those things. And this video, some of the inspiration comes from a movie called Love by the French avant-garde experimental director Gaspar. This movie was released in 2015. It's quite explicit, so don't watch it if you're not liking explicit sex scenes. I mean, this is a movie with explicit sex scenes. That's what it's known for. But the themes and the creativity are very much in line, I think, with the North Node in Taurus. And the primary theme is love and the kind of love of youth, right? The kind of chaotic, erotic love of youth. And this is a still from the movie that I just love. And there's a scene where one of the main characters says, "Can you show me how tender you can be?" And I really liked this scene within the other scenes of the picture because it was very much about the tenderness side of physical connection and love. And to me, that's the highest maybe expression, or one of the highest expressions of the Taurian. And so here we are. Let's just set the table with the dates so you can have these dates in your mind. A lot of people like exact dates. Well, here they are. Venus enters Taurus 16 March, will leave Taurus 11 April. Venus is in Taurus, this long stint here, 3.5 weeks or so before eclipse season. So it's one of the major opportunities over the next little period is to get involved in Venus and Taurus. I've talked about it on numerous videos. Venus will meet the North Node on 20 March, so right here quite soon. I'm recording this on the 15th of March, hope to have it released on the 16th of March to celebrate the Venus and Taurus moment. And then 4 days later, you have Venus conjoining the North Node and bringing these appetites that are part of what the North Node is. That's 20 March. Jupiter enters Taurus on 16 May, so we're looking about 2 months out from now, and Jupiter will remain in Taurus until May 2024. Jupiter conjoins the North Node on 2 June, so this will be after eclipse season. As we're getting into summer, late spring, we have that Jupiter North Node conjunction, and then Jupiter will conjoin Venus in Taurus in April 2024, 29 April 2024, and that conjunction of Venus and Jupiter in Taurus is right in the end of the transit of Jupiter there. So that's something to look forward to. It tells us how active Taurus is because we have that once a year luckiest day of the year in the luscious Earth Venusian temple of Taurus coming in April 2024. Now let's just break down some technical astrology here and talk about significations of planets. Anytime you want to delineate, first step, what do the planets mean that we're working with, that we're trying to derive meaning from? And in this case, Venus and Jupiter, both, the word desire and love comes up when Vedi's Phalans assign significations to the planets. And so both Jupiter and Venus are desire and love, effectively. And there may be different sides of it. I think the Venusian side of desire and love can be more flesh-oriented and pleasure-oriented, and the idea of sense orientation, whereas Jupiter is desire and love that's maybe of a higher frame, something that's trying to be more profound maybe, or more even religious in scope. What is the North Node? It's the spiritual point of appetite, of desire through wanting to take things in. And it can be destabilizing. That's why the nodes are so destabilizing. Sometimes people describe, when they talk about their pain in the past, the God-sized hole that we have that can only be filled through spirituality. That's how I think of the North Node. We try to fill our spirit up with things. We have an appetite to satisfy this deeper spiritual yearning. And the North Node, wherever it is, will bring that out of us. And so while it's in Taurus, we get these kind of spiritual appetites through desire and for desire and love and sensuality. I mean, this is the nature of the North Node in Taurus. And you can see here this lovely abstract piece from the AI that I work with. I just love that piece. And, you know, it's the nature of how crazy it actually can get. Love can make someone crazy. Desire for another can make us very much destabilized. I don't know if you've been in love before. I have a few times, and it's not something I would necessarily wish for all the time because of how intense it can be emotionally when you're in a love dynamic with someone. That's the North Node. And yet it's almost the most pure thing we can experience here, is that spiritual projection onto another, and then that desire can sort of raise us up into this spiritualized version of ourselves. And so it's this very nodal moment. And that's why in synastry, we always look for nodal synastry, because you want to look for the fated spiritualized connection between two charts to maybe understand why two people are attracted to each other or magnetized with each other. The Comilla Sutton book, The Lunar Nodes, Crisis and Redemption, one of my favorite books on the nodes, a Vedic astrologer, contemporary. Comilla Sutton has videos on YouTube. She's a really cool and loving energy. I really like her work. But in her book, she talks about a couple of things that I want to lay here, because it's the nature of what I think we might get to experience over this next period with the node in Taurus, then Jupiter in Taurus, and Venus in Taurus, over the next 2 cycles of Venus and Taurus. So here she says, Rahu experiences life to the full. It is intense, driven, and compulsive, and when in the full flow, there is absolutely nothing that can come in its way. Whether its aim is spiritual or material, there's an intensity to every pursuit. And this is why it relates to love. In Taurus with Venus and Jupiter there, planets signifying love. When we fall in love, it becomes sometimes totalizing in terms of how we think about our future and the choices we make. It's to find and support and go after that object of affection. Very Rahuian in terms of an appetite that love can bring. And she continues here, the world below your own, it can take you on a journey through the darker realms of existence, from drug addiction, crime, and negativity, then upwards towards the highest spiritual teachings. So she's underscoring here that Rahu, the North Node, is of the nature of seeking to fulfill or fill up some kind of inner spiritual need. And sometimes that's done through sensuality, sensual and material desire. And so when we think about eros in the context of love and pleasure, when we combine the nodal element, we're really talking about this spiritualized search that can sometimes, again, be destabilizing. And we see this. Writers have often talked about this. This is just a few books I was able to pull up fast. So here's Elliot Benjamin, The Creative Artist, Mental Disturbance and Mental Health from 2017. He talks about, I have transformed my initial spiritual experience of falling in love at age 19 into a veritable lifestyle of discipline and creativity, one that is always open to authentic spiritual. And then he continues there. So connecting that falling in love to a spiritualization of consciousness. Another book, The Spiritual Work of Marriage, David C. Olson, 2011. He says the spiritual experience does not devalue the original falling in love, but it takes it to a much deeper level. And so we can almost convert those initial erotic intensities into a deeper and more profound and more spiritualized version of that experience, I think, is the ultimate goal, seeing the divine in the other, and then bringing a more agapic connection into those relationships. And of course, this can be any relationship. I'm using eros here as one example, but we can have attachments with objects or things or certain art. There's ways to have a Rahuian kind of intensified desire that doesn't have to include erotic and romantic forms. So you can just think about in your life, what are you drawn to and sort of obsessed maybe with in terms of a coping strategy for your day-to-day existence that might be Venusian. And then this was a cool website. It was 123helpme.com. There was an essay, The Experience of Following in Love is a Spiritual Experience. They say Joseph Campbell spoke of the seizure that comes in recognizing your soul's counterpart in another person as a mysterious electric experience. Again, nodal. And Campbell speaks of the moment a person falls in love. Falling in love can be a deeply spiritual experience, the spiritual recognition of another. So just think about this here as you're working through Venus conjoining Rahu or the North Node on 20 March, Jupiter conjoining Rahu in early June, Jupiter entering Taurus and co-present with Rahu, all here in late spring and until the North Node, True Node, moves into Aries, which will be in July. There's a very much an opportunity of all the different astrology we're mixing with right now to have a spiritualized love affair with things around us and enjoy that. If you can find sensual pleasures and desire for things and interfacing with things, if you find yourself caught up in something like that, think about the nature of the soul and God and how that's part of the search of why things are put in front of us to desire, our crushes, the objects of our affection, ultimately trying to trigger up this kind of greater, deeper, more profound love is my belief. So then I wanted to just come back. Here's the film Love by Gaspar Noé. This is the scene that really was the impetus for this video. I really love this film. It's not easy to watch. Again, if you don't want to see kind of negative states about love and explicit sexuality, but there is a core truth that I think this movie gets at that I really love. And this is my favorite scene. It's toward the end of the picture. And the two main characters, when they first meet, the man, this is like part of his initial flirting. He says, "Are you in love?" That's what he comes right out with. Instead of asking, normally when we're maybe courting someone or meeting someone, you might say, "Oh, do you have a boyfriend? Or are you taken? Are you involved with someone?" He goes right to the core of it. Are you in love? And then the character here says, "I have someone. Yes, I have someone." And he says, "Well, of course you have someone. All the best girls have someone, but they're not all happy." And what he's getting at here is this idea of what is important in life. Like, life is very short. Are we going after the love that's triggered, right? The spiritual depths of what's possible, or are we sort of settling? And he cuts right to the core in this sort of Rahuian style of intimacy. High risk, high reward. I mean, this might not be appropriate, right? To walk up to someone and say, "Are you in love?" And to say, "Well, I have a boyfriend." Say, well, that's, implying that somehow that's not a relationship they should be in, because if it's not love, then why are they there? But at the same time, that may be kind of a real question. Like, what are we doing if we're not in love with our lives, day to day, the things we do, the people we see? Maybe it's, with Rahu and Taurus, time to dig a little bit deeper and even try to reinvent the loving depths of spiritualized experiences with our current relationships, refreshing them, bringing a little Rahu in to re-fall in love or fall in love again with the people and things that we've chosen in this life. But this scene is one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. It's really why I love this film, was this scene. Okay, and now I just want to do a little bit of chart work here, checking in 20 March 2023. This is the chart of Venus conjoining the North Node, and you can see it there with Uranus co-present. It's a mere 12 degrees away. That's a close enough orb in my view, and the whole sign. I'm a whole sign astrologer mostly. But there could be Uranian flashes here, right? The Uranian can be like the North Node, of these appetites and kind of unexpected unfoldments that are spiritual. This can be a Uranian, but it adding more of a quick change or a lightning flash of alteration into the mix. I love here how Pisces is sextile to Taurus. A major theme of 2023 and beyond is that Saturn is now sextiling from Pisces and supporting Venus. They're both aligned with the creative Venusian. So they flow together now. And I think this is lovely as Saturn gets washed and our more seriousness gets taken through the Piscean and the expansive nature of Pisces, that we can fall in love maybe a little bit easier now, and without having to grapple with these hard Saturn and Aquarius restrictions from that overcoming square. This is the first Venus in Taurus without Saturn making that overcoming square from Aquarius. So I think it does give more opportunity for the spiritualized sensuality to show itself in an easier way. And of course we get this lovely Pisces moon in this chart that's about to be here. You know, the moon is in Pisces only in a few days, and so the moon activates that sextile between Pisces and Taurus, which I'll talk more about. I got another video coming out soon. Got a bunch of videos coming out soon, by the way. I've written a bunch of them. They're just going to start rolling out here. So look for, you're going to have a lot of content from me very soon. And then of course this second chart, it's the 2 June conjunction of Jupiter and the North Node. And this one's really interesting because by this time, Mercury is moving direct again. Mercury during this period will be spending a whole retrograde cycle in Taurus as well. And it's another reason why we have the accentuation of the Taurian with Mercury's retrograde cycle. I'll talk about that more in my Aries season video, which is the next video I'm going to release. But Mercury also gives us an ability to go into the depths with our mercurial, with our mind, and bring the mind into the body and try to align those things and maybe do some inner work as Mercury moves backward to try to heal and review and work with all of the eclipses that have arrived in Taurus, and then work with these conjunctions and these more auspicious openings here in 2023 with Jupiter and Venus there. And this one's interesting because you also have a square from Mars in Leo pushing and squaring that Jupiter very, very close. And then of course Pluto will be in Aquarius by this time. There's this major transit on 21 May of this T-square in the fixed signs with Mars, Pluto and Jupiter. That's one of the major transits here in May after eclipse season. That happens, and then we get to enjoy Jupiter with the North Node, maybe settling in a little bit more. But I think these might be destabilizing. You know, if to go back to the love analogy, let's say we're falling in love, and during Venus with Rahu, and these appetites emerge, and then by the time Jupiter is there with Rahu, we might have to be questioning or spiritualizing those experiences into some higher truth or some higher vision. And that's the way that Jupiter can work in Taurus, I think, maybe a little bit differently than Venus. Okay, so that's it. That's a kind of a short video, but a major theme of the upcoming energies we're entering into. So I want you to enjoy Taurus, think about sensuality, think about comfort, think about physical comfort, tenderness, being tender with yourself, with your self-talk, maybe getting a little bit out of the head once Mars leaves Gemini, and just getting into the tenderness of the self-care of the physical. During this Taurus season with Venus and Taurus, love yourself, love the people around you, and know that there's a spiritual reason. Spiritual meaning non-visible. And I think God is a term I like. You know, there's a divine love that's at the heart of all reality. That's what I think the Rahu conjunctions with Venus and Jupiter are ultimately pointing us to, is this agapic, open, expansive heart that we have a capacity for if we, you know, lean into that and support that way of viewing reality. And so as always, you can go to my website, sjanderson144.com, check out my reading schedule. It's all there. You can read about the type of readings I do there. And I'll see you very soon. I've got a whole series of videos coming out, almost one every few days, little breakdowns like this, which is what I love to do. Pluto in Aquarius, new moon in Aries, all of that's coming. So stay tuned. Talk to you soon. Peace.